Hello, my name is Caleb Lanier, and today I will be going over protection against brute force attacks utilizing Palo Alto's next generation firewall. So the agenda for today, we will introduce brute force attacks, go over background information on next generation firewalls, set up the project objective, talk about the scenario setup in the labbing environment, go over the mitigation strategy deployed, look at the results and key takeaways from the project. So what are brute force attacks? Brute force attacks utilize a large volume of requests/responses from the same source or destination IP to break into a system. The goal of these attacks are to gain unauthorized access to information by guessing the combination of username and password to get into the system. So background on the Palo Alto Next Generation Firewall. What makes it unique? It has application level defense. So it is capable of defending attacks at the application layer or layer 7 of the TCP/IP stack. As such, it can defend against attacks on services such as FTP and SSH. It also has real-time intelligence updates. It remains updated against the latest attack vectors. This is important in contemporary cybersecurity as attacks are constantly evolving, and Palo Alto's network of attacks is constantly evolving as well. Deep packet inspection, it allows for detailed insights of traffic. So instead of just examining the packet header, it goes deeper within the packet to examine packets for misuse. And it also offers a single console for security policy management, which we will see later in the labbing environment as well. So the objective of the project is to evaluate the effectiveness of the next generation firewall to counter a brute force attack on the network. The goals are to determine the effectiveness, develop deployment guidelines, utilize NCRAC, which is an open source tool that we use to conduct the brute force attack, and implement a defense strategy. So this is our scenario setup. So we have here a client inside the user's net, which is a zone within the Palo Alto next generation firewall, and they will be attempting to access the DMZ, which houses a DMZ server at this IP address, and they will attempt to use the NCRAC tool to conduct a brute force attack. So the mitigation strategy we deployed is to apply a vulnerability profile with the brute force detection signature, with the exception that it will block the attempt in a certain amount of time. And we then link the vulnerability protection profile to the security policy to defend against that threat. The result of this is that we were able to successfully block the brute force attempt and record the event in the threat log. So some key takeaways. The next generation firewall allows for visibility into attack patterns, so they can reveal brute force attacks and remain updated in a variety of services. It also has real-time detection and response, so as we see in the lab, it immediately blocks the repeated login attempts and the attacker is not able to connect. It has customizable security policies, so we can see that we can set exceptions to rules that are already pre-made within the vulnerability protection profiles, and it also offers scalable protection. So you can create zones for different policies that you want to have and attach those policies per the specific portion of the network that you want to have it a part of. So now we will get into the actual demonstration. So the first thing we want to do is to conduct the initial attack on the DMZ. So the first thing we will do is use the NCRAC tool, which passes through a username text file as well as a password text file on the DMZ server at this IP address and at port 22. The result of this initial attack will be a successful attempt, as we will see here, and this will be allowed by the firewall because we have not deployed the vulnerability protection profile. So as we see here, it was able to discover the credentials for the DMZ, and we can test this password for this is pal0. So we see here that we were able to successfully log into this SSH to the DMZ, so the encrack was successful. Now if we look at the firewall's management interface, and if we go to monitor to see the traffic, we can see that there was these amount of connections to the SSH port of the DMZ server, which is 192.168.50.10, and we can see that from the threat logs there was no threat detected. And this is because we have not yet set up the vulnerability protection profile. So we will now do that. So first thing we want to do is go to objects and add a vulnerability protection profile, and we will name this demonstration. So first thing we want to do is add a rule. We name our rule brute force. And the action we want for our rule for the demonstration for this lab is to alert the security professional, which would be us in this scenario, to the issue. But it will not block or drop anything, so to demonstrate the exception that we want to add. And we can also put the brute force category as well, so it will use the default brute force protection profiles that Palo Alto has within it. And then as for the exception for the rule, this is where we add what we want to happen when the brute force attack is detected. And so since we are demonstrating using SSH, we'll go to the default SSH rule. And then the action we want to have is to block the IP, because we do not want to allow the attacker to connect. So we will block them for 10 minutes. And we can track this by the IP source in the destination. And if we come here, we can modify the number of hits per second that it takes to be recognized as an attack. And so for this demonstration, we will say, to be safe, we will say 5 hits in 15 seconds. And if 5 hits are detected within 15 seconds that have the signature of a brute force attack, then it will block the IP for 600 seconds, which is 10 minutes. And now that we have created the vulnerability protection profile, we need to attach it to our policy. So we see here that this is the policy that determines the user's net to extranet connection. So as we see here in the description, this allows hosts in the user's net zone to access servers in the extranet zone. So all policies related to the connection between these two will be in here. So we will add the vulnerability protection profile that we just created. Now we need to commit these changes to have them running on the firewall's running configuration. And the result of this is that should be that when we conduct this attack again, that it will be blocked. The security professional will first be alerted, because that is the regular rule, and then the exception to the rule is to block this attack. So we will see that the attacker should not be able to connect um, from their end, and on this end we will see the attack registered in the threat monitoring. So we'll just give this a couple more seconds to finish the commitment. Now that it has committed successfully, we can go back to the terminal and we can redo the attack. We have to first exit SSH. Now once we redo the attack, We can give it a couple seconds, but the result will be that the attacker will not be able to access, and it will eventually show that the attack has failed in ncrack. So if we come back, I think we have given it enough time. And if we go to the threats, we can see that the attack, the original rule for the attack was to alert the security professional, which is us in this scenario. So we were alerted, and then it blocked the IP. So this demonstrates that the Palo Alto Next Generation Firewall was indeed successful at blocking a brute force attempt. And if we want to confirm this from the attacker's point of view, we can see that these finished with too many failed attempts because it was blocked by the Next Generation Firewall.